sometimes faith starts to feel like a system that failed us. Today we'll be in 1 Samuel 4, and we'll be looking at a moment just like that. God's people expected victory in battle. They expected God to show up and fight for them, and they even bring what they believe prove God's presence with them, and they still lost. They lose pretty bad twice, actually, in this chapter. And the question this story presses on us isn't, is God powerful? Everyone in this story that we'll see believes that God is powerful. It's why they believe they'd win in the first place. The real question that gets posed is, what do we do when God doesn't work the way we expect? I'm going to read verses 1 through 4 to open us up, and then I'll pray. But before I read, I just want you to listen in this section, not just for what Israel does, but for what they expect God to do in this situation and how quickly their expectation turns into a plan. This is 1 Samuel chapter 4, starting in verse 1. Thus the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out to meet the Philistines in battle and camped beside Ebenezer, while the Philistines camped in Aphek. The Philistines drew up in battle array to meet Israel. When the battle spread, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the battlefield. When the people came into the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us take to ourselves from Shiloh the ark of the covenant of the Lord, that it may come among us and deliver us from the power of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh, and from there they carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, who sits above the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. Pray. God, we thank you so much for our time together today, Lord. We thank you for your word, your living word, that, Lord, that no matter how many times we read it, we can pick up something different, Lord. I feel blessed to be up here among so many of my friends, Lord. Um, I pray that you would let me step aside, that you would use me, spread your word and teach them, and that we would all grow closer to you, Lord. That we would see your character and understand um, what we mean to you and how much you love us, Lord, and that would energize us going forth into this. Lord, I pray that we would be strong for you, and I pray that we would be more like you each and every single day. All these things in your name. Amen. By this point in the story, we're only 4 verses in, and Israel's already suffered their first painful defeat at the hands of the Philistines. To their credit, at this point, in the first half of verse 3, they ask the right question. Right? If you look at the first half, they say, "Why has the Lord defeated us today?" That's the right question because it shows awareness of God's presence even in the defeat. It shows they recognize that this wasn't just bad luck, it wasn't military weakness. They understand that God was involved with them even when things didn't go as planned. Things didn't go how they wanted, and they ask the right question. But the problem is, they don't wait for the right answer. They immediately jump to their own conclusion. In fact, we don't even move to a new verse. Verse 3 begins with them asking the right question and ends with them completely bypassing God's wisdom and landing on the wrong conclusion. They say, "Let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord from Shiloh, that it may save us." This is where things go wrong. Notice the language that they're using. They didn't say, "Let us seek the Lord." They said, "Let us bring the ark." Their confidence shifted from a God who saves to an object that simply represents him. Be clear about a couple of things. The ark was not evil. It was not unimportant. It symbolized God's holy presence among the Israelites. It was a good thing to have around. and it had brought power to them in the past. Which brings us to point one. What God has done before is not a guarantee of what he's going to do now. What God has done before is not a guarantee of what he is going to do now. They weren't wrong about what the ark represented. They were wrong about what the ark could replace. Obedience requires listening and not just repeating what worked before. In Exodus, God provides water from a rock for Israel twice. Both times are miraculous. First time, God tells Moses to strike the rock with his staff. And from that rock, water flows for the Israelites. The second time, God tells Moses to speak to the rock, but this time Moses doesn't listen. He's frustrated, he's tired, and he's fed up with the people of Israel. So Moses does what worked before, and he strikes the rock. And water still comes out, but obedience didn't. What worked in the past wasn't what God was asking for in that moment. The instructions had changed, and Moses didn't slow down long enough to listen. That failure to listen, not a lack of faith, not rebellion against God, kept Moses from entering the promised land. When we come back to 1 Samuel, we see the same pattern. Israel treats the ark like a tool, something they can deploy to guarantee victory for themselves. After all, the ark had worked before. In Joshua, we see the ark went into the Jordan and the water stopped so they could cross. The ark circled Jericho and the walls fell. When God led, the ark moved and victory followed. They remembered the power that they'd seen in the past, and they remembered the result. But they forgot to listen. See, in Joshua, just a few books before, God speaks, God directs, and the ark follows obedience. But in 1 Samuel 4, God is silent. The people decide, and the ark becomes the whole plan. Same object, same symbol, but a completely different process. They never stopped to ask whether God had told them to bring it this time. They assumed that what worked before would work again. They wanted God's power without submitting to God's authority. They wanted victory without waiting for his voice. What this represents is transactional faith. It's an idea that if we do the right religious thing, that God will give us the outcome we want. Most of us, I would say, probably have never carried the ark of the Lord into battle with us literally. We do the same thing in modern form, right? If I pray harder, if I start going back to church, if I say the right word, if I do everything right, God will give me what I want. When the outcome doesn't come, disappointment turns into confusion and frustration, or even bitterness towards God that can affect your ability in deep relationships. The danger of having expectations as we enter this relationship. Which brings me to a quick side note about where I think a lot of people get this idea. A lot of people believe in transactional faith due to verses like Romans 8:28 getting pulled out of context. Romans 8:28 says, "We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God." Many people stop there. They hear that, they get it tattooed on their body somewhere and assume it means that everything will work out the way I want if I trust God enough. That's not what the verse is saying. If you keep reading, Paul says in verse 29, "For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he also called. And those whom he called, he also justified. And those whom he justified, he also glorified." The good in Romans 8:28 that God has for you isn't your preferred earthly outcome. It's God's eternal heavenly plan for you. And God God's plan doesn't always involve immediate victory, immediate comfort, or success how we picture it of any kind. Israel assumed that victory was part of God's plan right now, and it wasn't. No amount of religious effort, symbolism, or spiritual shortcuts could force God to do what wasn't aligned with his eternal purpose. See, God's plan is what's good, not ours. His plan doesn't include victory in this moment. We cannot force it to happen by trying harder or being more religious. We'll wrap this section up with this point. Israel's mistake wasn't that they believed God was powerful. It's that they believed they could control that power. They wanted the benefit of God's presence without the surrender of trust. They wanted results without relationship. They wanted victory without repentance. That expectation, the belief that God exists to fulfill our plans, is the expectation that fails us. Faith isn't about getting God to do what you want. Faith is trusting that God is present, purposeful, and working even when the outcome isn't what you had hoped it would be. Let's continue the story in verse 5 through 11. As the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout so that the earth resounded. When the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What does the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" Then they understood that the ark of the Lord had come into the camp. The Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us, who shall deliver us from the hand of these mighty gods? They are the gods who smote the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, or you will become slaves to the Hebrews, as they have been slaves to you. Therefore, be men and fight." So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated. That's defeat number 2. And every man fled to his tent, and the slaughter was very great. For there fell of Israel 30,000 foot soldiers. And the ark of God was taken, and the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. I want to remind you that those sons of Eli were Corrupt's son, and was again predicted in chapter 3, verse 11. What's happening here now? The ark arrives in the camp, and the people erupt. They shout so loudly that the ground shakes beneath them. This isn't polite worship of God, it's stadium level noise, the kind of sound you don't just hear, but you feel in your body. And yet, for all that noise, God doesn't move an inch, because this wasn't his plan, it was theirs. From the outside, this looks like a revival moment. There's excitement and confidence and momentum. It feels like victory is already being had. The Philistines are terrified, and they say a God has come into the camp. Everything about this moment feels spiritual. It feels like God is about to act, like the tides are finally turning. It's already starting to feel like victory. And honestly, feels like how the story's supposed to go. Israel loses. They bring the ark. God shows up. The enemy is crushed. Everyone rejoices and heads home celebrating with dry bread and boiled meat. And if I were writing the story, that plot line would make perfect sense. That's not what happened. Israel is crushed. 30,000 soldiers die. Hophni and Phinehas are killed, and the ark, the very symbol of God's presence among the Israelites, is captured and carried off by the enemy. This is the moment that everyone expected God to step in, and he does. That's jarring because, from a human perspective, they did everything that usually works. They brought the ark and they rallied the people and they stirred emotion and they created a powerful atmosphere that God refused to validate corruption with victory. Hophni and Phinehas, corrupt sons of Eli, are still leading. The people are still unrepentant, and the ark is being treated like a weapon instead of the holy symbol that it is. here's the truth we need to hear, and this is point two. God's silence and victory does not mean God's absence and defeat. I'm going to expand on that in a second. But God's silence and victory does not mean God's absence and defeat. When I say God's silence and victory, I mean this. Israel was building momentum without ever hearing from God. Things seemed to be going their way, and you could probably relate to this at some point in time. They assumed that because God didn't stop them, He didn't step in, He must be approving of them and their plan. But God never endorsed the plan. He never told them to bring the ark into the battle. When defeat came, it didn't mean God was gone. It meant God would not be manipulated for their purpose. See, God was present, but He will not be used. He will not bless manipulation, and He will not affirm unrepentant hearts just because the atmosphere feels good. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever asked God to bless a choice that you've already decided? Maybe you already picked the job that you wanted or the move that you were going to make, and then you asked God to make it all work out. Maybe you decided how to handle a relationship or a conflict and then prayed for God's blessing afterwards. Maybe you've set your financial plan or schedule and then you ask God to simply approve of it for you. Or maybe you chose what felt safest or easiest and hoped that God would guarantee success to you. Like Israel, we often ask God to bless our plans instead of asking Him to lead us. Because excitement is not obedience, noise is not repentance, and confidence is not faith. God does not owe us success simply because we create the right environment. His refusal to intervene here isn't cruelty, it's mercy. If God had given Israel victory in this moment, He would have confirmed corruption, rewarded manipulation, and allowed spiritual rot to continue unchecked among the Israelites. He would have become a tool himself, not the Lord. Sometimes the most loving thing God can do is withhold the victory we're after, because giving it would harm us more than losing ever could. God is working all things together for eternal good. So don't be surprised when that doesn't line up with your earthly plan. God is not absent in Israel's defeat, and He's not absent in your struggles either, but He will not follow a plan that you've made without Him. He is present, He is holy, and He calls us to obey Him first. Yesterday's obedience can become today's disobedience if we stop listening to His voice. Moses' staff still worked the second time, but the instruction had changed, and there were consequences for not listening. Let's continue with verse 12. How a man of Benjamin ran from the battle line and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes torn and dust on his head. When he came, behold, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road, eagerly watching, because his heart was trembling for the ark of God. So the man came to tell it in the city, and all the city cried out. When Eli heard the noise of the outcry, he said, "What does the noise of this commotion mean?" And the man came hurriedly to Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were set so that he could not. The man said to Eli, "I am the one who came from the battle line. Indeed, I escaped from the battle line today." And he said, "How did things go, my son?" Then the one who brought the news replied, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has also been a great slaughter among the people. And your two sons, also Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been taken." When he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell off the seat backward beside the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died, for he was old and heavy. Thus he judged Israel 40 years. Now his daughter-in-law, Phinehas, his wife, was pregnant and about to give birth. And when she heard the news that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband had died, she kneeled down and gave birth, for her pains came upon her. Oof, that's crazy, crazy verse. And about the time of her death, the women who stood by her said to her, "Do not be afraid, for you have given birth to a son." But she did not answer or pay attention, and she called the boy Ichabod, saying, "The glory has departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father in law and her husband." She said, "The glory has departed from Israel, the ark of God was taken." Eli's daughter in law names her son Ichabod, which means, "Where is the glory?" Her grief in this moment is raw and probably pretty understandable to us. Israel's been defeated, Ark is gone, her husband and his family are dead, he's alone. So she draws the conclusion that feels natural to her, that God has left. The perception is real, but it's not the full story. God is not gone forever. He simply moved. He does not abandon us in love, but he withdraws his presence from places where corruption, disobedience, and manipulation are allowed to persist. If that's in your life, then he withdraws his presence from you too. Scripture consistently shows us this truth. In Isaiah chapter 59, verse 2, says, "Your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God." Psalm 66, verse 18, "If I had cherished sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened." In Revelation chapter 2 and 3, Jesus threatens to remove lampstands, which are his presence among churches, if they do not repent. And here in 1 Samuel chapter 4 through chapter 7, honestly, God allows the ark, his presence, to be removed until corruption is addressed among the people. Consistently, we see that sin creates separation, not because God is cruel, but because he is holy. Holy means that he is set apart from sin. God refuses to stay where his presence is being used instead of honored. This is why Israel felt abandoned. But the reality is different. Ichabod is not the end of the story. What feels like God leaving is actually God preparing the way for restoration. Brings us to point 3. Restoration comes with alignment. Restoration comes with alignment. Obedience, humility, and listening invite God's glory back into your life. What we will see in a couple of weeks is that the ark, the very symbol of God's presence, does return once the corruption is removed from the people. Not because Israel figured out a better strategy, but because God was patiently working his plan all along. God's glory doesn't disappear forever. It may be delayed, but it is never gone. His glory comes through obedience. It comes to humility, and it comes to hearts that long for God himself, and not just what he can give. So remember today that yesterday's plans don't guarantee today's blessing. Our loudest efforts don't force God's hand. Even when we fail, his glory is still at work, moving toward restoration in the hearts and lives of those that are ready to honor. Dear God, I thank you so much for this time that we have together, Lord. I thank you so much for getting us through another week. Lord, I thank you for your many blessings that, small and big, Lord, we just hand them over to you and we give you glory for them. Lord, I pray that as we go through this week and in our lives, that we would be listening to you for your plan, that we would be prepared to hear from you and to act obediently in the ways that you call us. Lord, I pray that you would speak to us, that we, as we dive into your word each day, for those of us following the Bible recap, Lord, and as we pray, Lord, that you would make your plans known to us so that we can be open. Lord, I pray all of these things in your most holy and righteous
appreciate y'all being here this morning again. I know like there's still some shawarma left over there, so I'll run off. We'd love to have you stay and hang out. But as we close today, if you would stand, we're gonna sing our final song, and then I'll send us out with a benediction.